it's really something super
Hello,
fantastic.
Justyna. Just to let you know, we are starting in about a minute from now.
Roger. We know about that.
Yeah,
Go the
okay.
other way. Go back the other way.
Good evening to all of the space enthusiasts and young professionals gathered here from India. I welcome you all to the world's biggest digital space conference this year organized by SDNX and Helium Learning Labs. My name is Pallavi and I'm an intern at SDNX and Helium Learning Labs and your host for the session. I'm pretty sure we are all diverse in a lot of aspects, but there is one thing we all have in common, and that is our enthusiasm for space. This year's theme, the role of space education and research in emerging nations, was adopted to put a spotlight on the space activities in the emerging nations and empower them further. We expect that throughout the summit, the students and young professionals will get guidance on their education and career. SDNX Foundation was established in the year 2013 with the purpose of making space accessible for everyone with their educational projects and initiatives. Helium Learning Labs, who are our organizing partner, are an edtech company and aims to establish a world-class digital space school to fill the gap between space education and space industry, to train students for the future space workforce. With immense pride, I welcome our next speaker, who is the first female speaker on the Global Space Summit 2021. Justyna is an engineer and leader of Innspace Group. Innspace is an interdisciplinary team realizing space-related projects such as space bases and vehicles. They won the Student Aerospace Challenge, stood at 5th place at the Mars Colony Prize, gained Gold Winner and Winner title for 2 of their projects at Future Mars Life Competition and more. Justyna is involved in the Polish space sector as a member of the Student Council at the Polish Space Agency and a member of the board on the Polish Astrobiology Society. She is cooperating with other space associations as well. Justyna is a member of the advisory board of Mars Society South Asia and a judge during space and robotics competitions organized by this organization, and she is a national point of contact for Poland in Space Generation Advisory Council. She was awarded the title of Rising Star of the Polish space industry in the Constellation 2020 contest, intended to honor companies and people for the development of the Polish space sector. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the session to Ms. Justyna and take us through her work journey.
Thank you. So just let me share the screen. Yes.
Your audio is a little low. Could you speak a little louder?
Okay, I will try to speak louder.
Yeah, it is fine now. Yeah.
Great. So today I have pleasure to tell you about the Polish space sector and the interesting activities that are being carried out in Poland. So my name is Justyna, and I think there is nothing more to add about me. I am engineer and leader of Innspace Group, a member of Student Council at the Polish Space Agency, and a member of the board of the Polish Astrobiology Society. And I'm also involved in many other associations, space associations in Poland and abroad. So our space sector in Poland is very young because Poland joined the European Space Agency in 2012. And our own space agency, the Polish Space Agency, was established in 2014. So, to catch up at this time, the development of our space sector is very significant in many fields. We not only create companies and implement space projects for European Space Agency, but we also have very active students who, of course, are the future of the sector. We have many NGOs operating in this area. As well, we have some research institutes, not only public, but also private one. So it can be said that the development of our space sector and these human resources in this sector goes hand in hand with the implementation of projects. I don't know. Okay, so a significant part of space projects in Poland is created as a part of projects carried out by European Space Agency. So as Poland is a member state of European Space Agency, Polish companies can take part in organized competitions and implement space projects in bigger groups. So here you can find just a few ESA mission examples where Polish entities took part in. So I will present you a few examples of projects where Polish companies were involved in. So I think it's good to start with one of the, I think, very known mission, which is INSIDE. So Polish institutions constructed a mechanism that is a part of INSIDE probe. So as you already know, INSIDE is a robotic lander designed to study the deep interior of planet Mars. And the impact mechanism of HP3 penetrator, so which is called the MOL, was made by engineers from the Space Research Center and the Polish Academy of Science and the Astronica company. So the second interesting mission is JUICE, which is Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer. And it is an important mission of European Space Agency to increase the knowledge of Jupiter and its icy moons, which is Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede. An important component of this probe is over 10-meter magnetometer manipulator, which you can see on the screen, and it is used to place some of the measuring instruments away from the magnetic interference of the spacecraft. And it was created by a Sener company. So another mission is a scientific satellite which will observe solar corona and will test precision flight techniques of satellite platforms in formation. So platforms will be separated 150 meters apart. The payload of its first platform will be coronagraph. The payload of the second will be occulter, and the Cryotech Instruments company was involved in design and production of this coronagraph. So as you can see, there are only a few examples of projects. There is much more of them, but I wanted to give you an overview how it looks like in Poland. So let's go to another part, which are own projects of Polish entities. So Polish companies are also bolder and bolder in implementing their own space projects. So I just wanted to give you a few examples, and as you can notice, many companies in Poland is involved in satellite sector. So the first one is STORK mission, which was launched in June 2021, so not so long ago. And it is an innovative shared platform with Earth observation capabilities. So it was made by Polish company Sat Revolution, which currently builds the real-time Earth observation constellation planned for 2026, which will consist of over 1,000 observation satellites. So a few days ago, Sat Revolution placed 2 new optical satellites into orbit, and the task of these satellites is to collect data for agricultural and energy industries in Poland and in the USA. So then we have ICEYE, and the company ICEYE is building a satellite-based service to provide the world with access to near real-time imagery from space. So their synthetic aperture radar instrument can capture images from clouds, darkness, and other obscuring elements, so making it more reliable and operational use for more reliable than optical camera systems. So of course, again, that's just two companies from all companies in Poland. But I need to mention the Polish Space Agency activities. Of course, there is plenty of them, but as a subject of our summit is space education and research, so I just wanted to highlight two projects. So first one is Future Space, and the Future Space project's goal is to change the education system and encourage more students to involve in STEM. So Polish Space Agency is actively involved in preparing lesson scenarios and evaluating them with teachers. They are promoting space role models through movies, podcasts, and interviews. And they are creating catalogs, for example, where to study space. And another initiative, and I am part of it, is a student council to president of Polish Space Agency. And it is an advisory group composed by students from over 20 Polish universities. So we as a council are involved in, for example, webinars about career in space, in organizing student space conference and other Polish Space Agency activities. For example, we have prepared a paper about space educational programs all over the world to give an examples to our space agency what can be done in the field of space education. And very interesting idea is also Cosmic Hub. So it is a shared space, real space in the center of Warsaw, which is capital of Poland, where innovators and startups and students are able to meet, to share knowledge, to take part in workshops, and take advantage of the knowledge and contacts of representatives of Polish Space Agency. So I think that's the three most interesting initiatives of our space agency. So of course, we should mention about universities, but we have really good universities in Poland. And I just wanted to highlight two of the most interesting ideas, which are quite new. So the first one is a new international studies, which are led by two universities, one in Gdańsk in Poland and one in Bremen in Germany. So thanks to this project, students are able to study at two universities at the same time. And these studies are in engineering and management of space systems and are conducted entirely in English. So if you want to study space, maybe it is a good idea to join these projects. The second one is UNIVERSEH, and it is a very interesting alliance of 5 universities from 5 European countries. So it was established last year in November 2020 to develop a new way of collaboration in the field of space. So there is, of course, one of the Polish university from Krakow, and the one of first task of this Polish university was to create a space technology center. So as part of the activities of this center, the university plans to, of course, educate specialists in the fields of space, but they are going to fund foreign scholarships for students who are interested in the subject of space technologies. So again, if you want to study space in Poland, you can gain funds for it. So I encourage to take a look at this project. And these projects will also support scientific and students projects in the field of space research, and is going to work closely with companies from the space industry and space agencies around the world. So I think it's a very interesting solution, as 5 different universities from 5 countries decided to create one group of so-called space universities. So then I think we should mention about some NGOs, as we have in Poland plenty NGOs working on space-related projects. For example, educational ones. So Let me introduce just a few of them, but there is much more. So the first one is European Space Foundation. I think that some of you may know already this organization. The mission of European Space Foundation is to promote knowledge in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So one of the most well-known projects is European Rover Challenge, which is the leading European space and robotics competitions. I think that some of you are familiar with Rover Challenge competitions. So the European one is made by Polish foundation. Then we have WroSpace, which deals with promoting space. So far, they, for example, have organized 4 editions of the largest educational event in Poland, which is World Space Week Wrocław. They have created an event dedicated to the history of space explorations, which is Yuri's Night. They conducted a robotics competition for children, which is Junior Rover Cup, and they also run workshops for children and what is interesting, for teachers. And of course, I need to tell you about Polish Astrobiology Society, as I am a member of the board in this association. So we are a group of Polish scientists whose research goes far beyond the Kármán line. So we work in various fields. So we have biologists, geologists, physicists, and even lawyers. And we are united by a common goal, which is to study life in the universe. And we decided to work together and develop and promote astrobiology in Poland. For now, we have several dozen of members, researchers and scientists all over Poland. And we organize webinars, record interviews with scientists, and conduct some kind of workshops. And of course, as I mentioned, we have a lot of student space projects, and some of them are reaching really a long time. They are even longer than Polish Space Agency. So Polish students are working on rockets, balloons, rovers, and Mars bases, and all kinds of space projects. And I think that we can introduce 2 of them. Of course, I need to mention Innspace, which is an interdisciplinary team realizing space-related projects, such as Mars bases and vehicles. What is unique? We are a group of 20 people from over a dozen universities in Poland, and we are working on projects completely remotely. So we won the Student Aerospace Challenge, we took 5th place at Mars Colony Prize, gained a gold winner title at the future Mars Life competition, and more. The second one, which is very interesting. Oh, that's okay. It's PWSAT. So it is student educational projects, and they are working now on the 3rd project. So PWSAT-1 is a satellite launched in 2012. And the task of this satellite was to test flexible photovoltaic cells and check the orbitation system. The aim of PWSAT-2 was to construct and test an innovative deorbitation system in the form of a sail, as you can see on the picture. During the mission, the sun sensors and the solar panels systems were also tested. And now the team is working on PWSAT-3, and the main of this project, the aim of this project is to test the designed cold gas propulsion system for orbit control. So of course, I don't have enough time to show you all rovers, rockets, and balloons teams, but of course there is a lot of them, as I guess in a lot of countries. But I want to tell you more about SOMA research institutes. So long before creating a Polish space agency, Polish research institutes were involved in some projects, but there wasn't many of them. So it was very interesting. We had very interesting projects, but I can't say that we had space sector. But what is really interesting, except of these research institutes conducted by research units, we have now also private research initiatives. And I think that's very interesting. So the first one is Analog Astronaut Training Center, which is a private company which accelerates human spaceflight scientific studies. The company established a lab to simulate space environment for scientific experiments focused on space biology and medicine. So the facility is located in Poland. And they are organizing rocket workshops, stratospheric missions, and what is the most interesting, lunar and Martian analog simulations, so analog missions. And the company last year reached 26 successfully organized analog missions. But it's not the only facility with analog missions in Poland. What is interesting? So the second one is LUNARES research station, which is again analog research station for manned space mission simulations, which is located in post-military airport in Poland. It was built 4 years ago, and it was the first of its kind project in Europe. And the facility provides full isolation and allow for complex research on the psychological impact of long-term extraterrestrial human presence. So the facility has also 250 square meters of EVA area. And again, they are organizing analog lunar and Martian missions. So we have two facilities with analog missions in Poland. And at the end, I want to say just that our space sector is very young, but as you can see, it grows fast. We have many companies, many NGOs, many research institutes, not only public ones, and we have plenty of students teams which are working together. So which is very important to notice is that our companies, for example, are working closely with some students teams. So as you can see, cooperation is a key if you have really young space sector and you want to develop it more. So if you want to know more or cooperate with Polish institutes or companies, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and I understand that there wasn't much time to share about all of the things that you mentioned, but the things that you mentioned is something that we will definitely search on later. And it is very wonderful to see that there are students who are taking part in the projects that you have taken. Can you stop presenting your presentation?
Done.
Yeah, okay. So the next part we will be entering on is an interview session, and it will be followed by a fun rapid fire round. So my question to you is, how do you feel the European Space Agency has helped Poland to enter into the space industry?
I think that European Space Agency is a key, and it was the crucial aspect to create our own space sector. Because like our space sector, we can tell that it was established when we had this opportunity to take part in European Space Agency projects, because for the first years we have better opportunities to take part in these projects, and this way we could develop our skills, we could develop our companies and gain the experience, which is extremely important in space sector because it's hard to realize commercial projects when you have no experience in this sector. So I think it was a crucial aspect, and still it is, because most of our projects which are really interesting are made for European Space Agency, and they are bigger and bigger. So I hope that in the next 10 years, maybe we will lead the consortium, not only be part of it.
Yeah, definitely, like cooperating and like working with European Space Agency has opened you to a lot of possibilities. And what part of your job excites you every day to keep coming back to it?
I think that if we are talking about space industry, I think that the most interesting part is that it is very interdisciplinary sector because it demands, of course, robotics and constructors and programmers, but also lawyers, for example, biologists, geologists, architects. And every day I have opportunity to work with different people and to learn new things. So I never thought that I will be able to learn about, for example, astrobiology. And now I am in Astrobiology Society and I am even a member of a board conducting webinars. So it is really exciting that every day I can learn something from others because, of course, everyone is a specialist in its field. But to develop projects, we need to work together. So I need to learn new things to know how to, for example, build a base or to design a vehicle. So yeah, I think that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, also as you mentioned that the multidisciplinary part is the exciting part. So like, would you like to share with us like why is it important to be multidisciplinary in the space industry? Because some people have this wrong thought that you only have to be an astronaut to actually contribute to the space industry. So please shed some light like why is it very important to be multidisciplinary?
Yeah, being astronaut is, for example, a great goal, but there are only a few of them. And we need to notice that space sector is huge. It's really a sector where a lot of companies and institutes and even NGOs and students teams work together on space projects. So you can do exciting things, not only to fly in space, but your project can fly to space, and it is exciting as well. And I think that really you need to have different experience even if you want to be an astronaut. So of course it is great to be a specialist because this sector needs specialists in different fields. So not only electronics or constructors, but in different fields. So first, of course, you need to gain some experience in some field. But all of these projects, as you can see, are very interdisciplinary. So usually plenty of companies worked on these projects because any companies couldn't do it by yourself. So it is like natural for space sector that you need to cooperate. So even if you do space projects, you need to find people who know something in the parts of science that you don't know nothing about. For example, in our team, we have even lawyer or we have a doctor because space medicine is important not only in training of astronauts, but if you, for example, designing a Mars base, you need to include this medical requirements, how it should be done to be useful for people. So yeah, we need to cooperate in every project. That's impossible to miss it in this sector. Like you can't do anything alone.
That is true. And how was your like how was your reaction when you were awarded the Rising Star of the Polish space industry?
That was very interesting because I didn't know that I was nominated, so it was a huge surprise. Of course, I am active in this sector, but there is a lot of people like me who working every day to develop our sector to do another project. So it was an honor to be distinguished, to be awarded in this competition, and I am really happy that my sometimes not so obvious projects were awarded because I don't do things that are typical for our space sector. Because our space sector, as you could notice, is more involved in satellites, and it's not the kind of projects that are the most interesting for me. I prefer, for example, Mars or moon bases or projects. So it's far away from satellites. So it was a huge surprise that they noticed my projects.
And were you always interested in space and did you always know that you are gonna go in this field in the future?
No, I didn't know that. You need to take into account that I started my studies in 2012. So it was the year where Poland joined European Space Agency, and our space system didn't exist at that time. So we couldn't imagine that, oh, we can work in space, because we had no space sector in Poland. So no one
Yeah.
thought about I will be designing Mars rovers. Like, hello. Maybe NASA is doing some space rovers, but not Poland. And then we
Yeah.
joined ESA, and we had our own space agency, and we started to have some interesting projects. Now we have really interesting ones. So you can be involved not only in satellites, but as you can see in InSight missions. So for example, in Mars lander. So yeah, now you can think that, oh, I want to work in space sector. So for me, it wasn't so obvious, but I see that for people now, it's more obvious that they can be part of space sector, and I think that's great that we develop it through this 9 years. So it's not so long, to the level that young people think, okay, I can work in space sector.
And as the space industry in Poland is very fresh and very new, so is it something that is very popular among the school kids and college kids that they are looking forward to pursue it in the future?
I think it's more and more popular. We have more, for example, initiatives on universities. As you can see, we have some space studies at different level. We have some other initiatives like this UNIVERSEH between European space universities, as we can say something like that. So yeah, they are trying to make another possibilities to be involved in space sector. So it is very visible that it's more and more popular, and like more and more universities is trying to offer something in this space field, even if it is one study, for example, master study.
Okay. And how do you feel like privatization might help an emerging nation to develop in the space industry?
I think that's for now, for us, it's very important, as as we have only few research institutes, like public institutions, which are working on space projects, and most of them are private companies. So we could see that our whole space sector is mostly private sector, which is great, because again, we couldn't imagine 20 years ago that private companies will be able to do space, and we will have this new space age. So I think it's exciting. We never had this public space sector, so for us it's normal that we have only private companies, but they are supported by, of course, public, for example, fundings. So it's not like they are working on their own, but yeah, most of them are private companies.
So this last decade has been very promising for Poland as they just started with their new space company. And how do you feel like it will be in the next decade, coming decade?
Uh, I think it's exciting, because I see these changes for the last 10 years, because I was a part of it. And when I see projects we are working on now, and I see, for example, opportunities for students, like I would never imagine that, oh, as a student, I will have opportunity to, for example, work on satellite and send something in space. So it is very exciting. And even now we are working on really advanced projects. So I can only imagine what we can do in the next 10 years. I think that this experience will let us to not only be a part of, for example, some ESA projects, but also to be a leader in these projects. But again, we need some time to have this experience and have this knowledge, because we, of course, did a lot of things during these 10 years, but we still have 50 years more to catch up.
Yeah, that is true. And I would like to talk about analog missions now. So how accurate do you think analog missions are to simulate a targeted environment? Like if they are making a lunar base or they are simulating a Martian base, and why is it important?
I think that it is very important to make some research on these psychological aspects, which are extremely important in this Mars or Moon missions, especially if we want to have longer ones, not just a few days, but half a year, or in the case of Mars, maybe 2 years or something like that. Because I was a part of such a mission myself. It was the longest mission in Poland, and it lasted 6 weeks. So maybe it's not the journey to Mars, but 6 weeks were too long for me, and I was really exhausted because it looks like very simple. You just need to go to this analog and have no contact with the world, but it's really tiring and demanding on this psychological part, that you have only
Yeah.
limited space, limited people, and you need to live every day 24 hours per day with them. So of course I had a great team and I had a lot of fun, but everyone needs some space for themselves. And I think that these conclusions are very important for example, lunar bases. That of course you can't just sit in your room alone, because in such a missions you need to take care to integrate with other people. But you should have this private space as well, because everyone needs to just think and be alone. So that's the conclusions we, for example, incorporated to our project. That you have this very these two parts, like the private and the public one, because like this was the first thing we made after these missions. But there is more of them. Like you could sitting 6 weeks in some analog, you see that, for example, even your chair, which isn't comfortable, but you can use it, for example, at home. If you have only this and you need to sit there on 12 hours, that's a problem. So these ergonomic issues are also very important.
Yeah, and as you are included in a lot of space research and development, if there is someone who asks you like why are you involved in so many space research and development things, projects, and how would you answer them like it helps in Earth, it helps our planet Earth actually, the research and development that we are doing.
I think that even if we were, for example, on the moon, we still don't know almost anything about Moon and Mars. And if we want to go there and be there for the longer time, we need to be prepared. So we need to do as much research as we can on Earth to make sure that, for example, these astronauts will be safe, and that our mission will be well prepared and will end with success. Uh, so yeah, it's very important to work on again on different research, because of course we need to check this technological part, if our solutions are working and will be working in this space environment. But we need to take care of this psychological and medical aspects, because they are important as well. Because even if we have great, for example, base and great moon rover, if we have an astronaut which has some mental disease, that's not going to work, and he or she can hurt some other astronauts and destroy our base. So we need to work on different topics at the same time to include all conclusions into one project.
Yeah, and with this was the end of the interview session, and now we are moving on to a fun rapid fire round. So I will be just asking you fun questions apart from the technological questions. Yeah, so as you are a part of astrobiological project, so I would just like to ask you like what is the possibility of life like not from Earth, from different planets? Do you believe in extraterrestrial life?
Yeah, I think that our universe is so huge that it would be very selfish to think that we are so unique and we are the only one in our universe. And of course, we don't have any signs that the life exists in the universe, but we need to take into account that, again, our universe is huge. So we have sometimes million of light years away some planets. So it is very difficult for us with our technology to find this life. So I think that it's possible that, for example, in my life we never find a signs of life, but I really believe that there is something in the universe, but we just don't know how to find it.
And what is your favorite science fiction movie?
I hate science fiction movies.
That is,
That's very strange because most of people
yeah,
involved in space love them. But I am an engineer, and I also always see, this mistake that, oh, how you
yeah,
can
yeah.
found in space or something like that, and I just can't watch it because I always say, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and my friends hate me, so I just don't watch.
That was a really nice answer. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And and other than planet Mars, which planet fascinates you the most in our solar system?
I think that Venice. And
Okay.
one of our projects that we are working on now is related to Venice, uh, because we really believe that it's a interesting planet, and of course you can't live on the surface of this planet because there is like 400 degrees and acid in the air. But on the proper level, I think it's 50 kilometers above the surface, there are really great conditions, and we are working on some kind of flying base. We don't know if there will be in our project astronauts or not, but we are trying to find out if it's possible to create such a base in the clouds, and if not, what do we need to develop as a human to really do it. So I think that it's very interesting direction, especially that it's closer than Mars.
And as a researcher, if you were to come across extraterrestrial life and you were the person who was in head in charge, like to communicate with them, what would be your first question to them?
Wow, that's very tricky question. So as an engineer, I trying to think how we can communicate with them. I think that's the biggest problem, that we don't know how they communicate. So I have no idea. I think that the first question will be if they can understand us. Oh, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I could understand them. So that's a problem.
That's true. And with this, I would like to end all of my questions with one question, and that is, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give to the people who want to enter this industry?
I think that the best advice is just to enter this sector, because there is so many opportunities in students teams, in NGOs, in companies, to be an intern, to work, for example, in Space Generation Advisory Council. There is a lot of associations, so it's not so hard to be involved. And now where like our world is global, and you can sit, for example, in Poland or in India and be involved in activities in USA or in other European country, it's not so hard to be involved. So the most important is just to take the first step and to do something and to realize your dreams. And I think that everyone should take into account that all kind of fields, uh, all specialists are welcome in this space industry. So you can be a lawyer, a doctor, an architect, and programmer. You can be whoever you want to be and still be involved in space sector, and that's great. So just take this first step and start to be involved.
It was very wonderful to speak to you, and I wish you all the best with your future projects and all the aspects. And I believe Poland has a very long way to go, and with people like you in this industry, it is more good. We are very delighted to have you from the SDNX and Helium Learning Labs, and we wish to talk to you more in the future. And we wish you all the best. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
the
being here.
invitation.
Thank you.
have some explanation for that. We have none. Don't worry. Continue your program. Oh boy, it's really something that was fantastic here. You couldn't ever imagine this. Roger.